and welcome back. This is the second of the three-part series that we are doing on this book called Gulbadan, Portrait of a Princess at the Mughal Court. It was written by Rumer Godden, and just to remind you, in the first part, we discussed the origins of the Mughal Empire, the journey of Emperor Babur from his early days to then when he moved on to Afghanistan and established an empire in the north of India. And now we come to the part when he moves to India and what happens then. It begins with the journey itself, which takes around 5 or 6 months, and that's because a lot of shifting has to be done. All the stuff that is there, but then more importantly, all the royal members of the family, and then the harem, which comprises of so many women. And that itself was a big deal, and that's why it was going to take a lot of time. But then the plans were suddenly made, and Babur wrote a letter back home to Kabul, and he said that he felt lonely there and he felt a strange sense of exile. So that kind of tells you that where he felt his home was. And that's been the case with a lot of Mughal emperors. Even though they ruled a large part of India, they always felt like outsiders. So there's a lot of emotion involved when he talks about moving from Kabul to north of India, which is around Delhi in present times, mostly around Agra, Aligarh, these places. And what happened to the Afghanistan region then? Who was going to govern it? Well, he had two sons, Humayun and Kamran. So Humayun was supposed to take care of Badakhshan and Kamran to Kabul, and that's how it was going to be. And then begins this long journey when the whole harem is traveling. And the journey approximately starts in the winter time in January, where there's a lot of snow around in the Kabul region, and the travel is naturally difficult. And then they describe the journey also in the book, how it went about. They talk about rivers, how the grass really changed from barren hills to the oases of green once they, crossed the Khyber Pass. And as they kept marching on, there was a lot of activity. They sang songs, they stopped in a few places and then continued their journey. So it was really an interesting one. So let me read couple of paragraphs from the book, and you get the idea how the journey went like, and what were the things they witnessed through the journey. So here we go. Babur had noticed how the land changed beyond this river. They're talking about Indus River. They were coming into the richer tracts of what is now Multan and the Punjab, to villages standing in fields of young wheat, small towns of almond and fruit blossom and gardens, towns in which they would have drawn crowds. Each day discovered more curious things. Though Gulbadan does not mention them, there must have been so much that was new that any child's eyes would have opened in wonder. She was used to the beautiful meal-colored oxen used in Afghanistan for ploughing, but here were water buffalo with horns 3 times as wide. There were monkeys, new birds, peacocks roosting in trees. She saw palms, coconut, date, sugarcane, jackfruit, papayas, betel and arecan nuts, banyans and banana trees. Then at night there was the shrilling of cicadas, crickets, and almost certainly the droning of mosquitoes. The women were fortunate if they had thought of nets. Incense burners would have been put below the beds. A spring night in Indian homes or camps is always associated with that smell of burning incense. So, as they came nearer to India, that is, so did the hot weather, bringing sudden dust storms that blinded and filthied clothes and hairs. But there was always dust and the strong smell of sweat from men and horses that not even the perfumes could blot out. It must have been stifling in the tightly curtained litter or palanquin. So that's how the travel was like. It wasn't really all rosy and entertaining. There were quite a lot of challenges. And then finally, they reached the towns of Agra and what they call Kul Jalali, which is now known as Aligarh. And that's where they settled, these women. But that was really the start of what was going to be the Mughal Empire in India, and that would last for the next few hundred years. But quite interestingly, Babur had not really liked these parts of northern India. In fact, when we go by the records, he says that he had found Agra quite repulsive. And bear in mind, of course, back in those times, in Babur's times that is, there was no Taj Mahal in Agra, so you can imagine the town without all its grand architecture. The thing of beauty that we see today, none of it was there. So, what does he say? I'll quote Babur from the book. Soon after coming to Agra, he says in the memoir, I crossed over the Jamna and studied the country to find a fit place for a garden. It was all so ugly and repelling that I left the river disgusted. Owing to the forbidding aspects of the banks, I almost gave up my idea of making gardens there. But because no better place could be found near Agra, I was forced to make the best of this same spot. So that's what he does now. He creates some space for the harem and the garden next to it. And then, of course, the court and the chambers and the towers, all those things are built alongside. So, with that as the center, the Mughal Empire under Babur flourished for some time until in the year 1530 when he died. He had gotten really weak and sick at that time. And then it was Emperor Humayun's turn to take the throne. And as you can understand, particularly within the royal family, within the court, it was quite a difficult time. In fact, the mourning went on for months and years. But then once Humayun took over, he was still in his early 20s, maybe 21 or 22 at that time, in 1530. And the new era of the Mughal Empire began. And this was an important time because this was when, under Humayun's emperorship, Gulbadan wrote the memoir of Humayunama, and she captured all the details of the harem and various aspects of the courtly life in the Mughal Empire. So that is going to be an important period. And this is something that we'll discuss in the concluding section of the podcast in the next episode. We'll also cover a few years of Akbar's emperorship, what happens when, because Gulbadan spent a few years in those times also. So all of that will be in the next episode. Stay tuned and keep following the podcast. Thank you very much.